Fuck you, VTubers! If you're mentally ill enough to become a VTuber, you're a big head of manner to need ZAN-VT, public relation, business ethics, internal communication. If you think you're going to find cheaper and better, you can kiss my ass! It is my belief that VTubers are so emotional, they need someone to hold their leash. Guaranteed! And if you're a tourist, go back to flesh tubing. You heard me right! Go back to flesh tubing. Bring your brand, bring your agency, bring your Oshi. I'll fuck her. That's right, I'll fuck your Oshi. Because at ZAN-VT, we work even on Sundays. Take a call with ZAN-VT. I'm a piss tuber. That's right, piss tuber. Don't wait, don't delay, don't fuck with me, or I'll rip your ovaries off. Only at ZAN-VT, the only consultant that tells you to fuck off. Hurry up, asshole. This event ends the moment after you send an invoice. And it better not refund or you're dead, motherfucker. Go to horny jail. ZAN-VT Consulting. Between rawest and most honest home of the meanest son of a bitch, this side of VTubing. Guaranteed! Fuck you, Fuck you, VTubers! If you're mentally ill enough to become a VTuber, you're a big head of manner to need ZAN-VT, public relation, business ethics, internal communication. If you think you're going to find cheaper and better, you can kiss my ass! It is my belief that VTubers are so emotional, they need someone to hold their leash. Guaranteed! And if you're a tourist, go back to flesh tubing. You heard me right! Go back to flesh tubing. Bring your brand, bring your agency, bring your Oshi. I'll fuck her. That's right, I'll fuck your Oshi. Because at ZAN-VT, we work even on Sundays. Take a call with ZAN-VT. I'm a piss tuber. That's right, piss tuber. Don't wait, don't delay, don't fuck with me, or I'll rip your ovaries off. Only at ZAN-VT, the only Am I still muted now? I shouldn't be, right? Oh, now. Now I'm not muted. At least I shouldn't be. Okay. Okay. Okay, good. And I got it working again. Alright, we're in. We're in, guys. Sorry for the scuff. Okay. Hey, look. I should have prepared more else for me. My bad. Okay. Hello everyone. Welcome. Today is one other day for certain. Welcome to the stream for everyone that's like new or whatnot. I am ZAN-VT. I am a VTuber consultant, which basically means I wrangle idiots and I do stuff that nobody wanna do. You know, you're sort of like the janitor. You do you clean up stuff that nobody wants to. Okay. So today, we are here to talk about like this document that I saw and I made a Twitter post about. Music just a bit too loud. Okay, just let me tone that down a sec. Should be better now. Alright. I did invest in a pop filter since last time, so that should be slightly better. Okay, we're all good. So, to resume, I saw this post last week, you know, right? VTuber Guide to Ethics and Legalities, and I had a couple of like words to say about it, so I basically wrote an entire paragraph. TLDR, I don't really like how this document came out, and I thought there was, you know, some things that like weren't really accurate, that were a bit constituted misinformation a bit. And you know, it's so rare that people actually bring up the topic of PR outside of me, obviously. Like, it's so rare that someone actually brings up the topic of PR in VTubing. So when I saw that document, I mean, you kind of have to know, like, I had to jump on it, you know, even though it's been a bit of a long time since the last stream. I do apologize for that. It's very consistent at the moment, and it's probably gonna still be the case forward. But I had to jump on this one, you know? It just fits with everything I tend to do. For those who haven't seen the Twitter post I made about this, like replying to this with like a bit of a nolly view of like what is going to be the stream, which is essentially going to review like the entire PR section, which are like the first 8 pages, 6 I think, of this document. And I lost my train of thought there. God damn it, I apologize. We're gonna be reviewing this basically, and try to give you guys like some idea on like a couple of like advices that I think are more suitable, or maybe rectify the information in this a bit so that all of you who are watching, and I assume this is gonna be peak VOD content for those who will eventually watch it. So hi VOD watcher, say hi to the VOD watcher, guys. I'm gonna try my best to like give you some keys to like understand why the way I work and why PR is the way it is and why it works the way it is, and maybe some consideration you hadn't thought of before. However, do keep in mind, well, I'm like open to like any and all question you guys have. Feel free to ask them as the stream like goes along. I'll try my best to answer them. There is only so many questions I can answer, right? Because I am under like quite a huge amount of NDAs now at this point, so non-disclosure agreement for those who don't know what that means, which basically means I have a bunch of red tapes around me. I'm in a silly room for silly people who say silly things, and I'm not allowed to say silly things. So there are some
questions that I simply am not allowed to answer, whether that be me as a personal and professional choice, or because, well, there are those pesquise NDAs in the way. Well, I call them pesquise, but honestly, it's like many people have a warped views of NDAs, and yes, many companies do abuse that tool. Many companies do use that tool like poorly, like not as it is intended, but it is regardless like a bit of a necessary evil, right? Because there's certain information you don't want to get out there for various reasons. Maybe it's because it's like trade secrets, maybe it's because it's like internal issues or whatnot. It's more so like you need it because you need like a set of rules, right? You need a chaperone for everyone to like be on the same page, work in tandem, and do things in a way that like pushes the company forward and benefit it. And it's important to have those rules, right? Because like you don't want people being treated differently, and NDA is also allowed to like exact punishment on people who well break these rules, and that's important. Oh yeah, I'm seeing a question in the chat right now that's actually interesting from AN2 Xavok. I'm trying my best to pronounce it. Do doctors get NDAs? Yes and no. They sort of get those. Same for lawyers, by the way. For doctors, it's called medical secret, and lawyers also have like client attorney privileges. Basically, everything that you say to them is private, as long as you don't signal to them that you're going to commit a new crime or offend, or that you're in danger for other people. Basically, you can legit tell your lawyer. You shouldn't tell your lawyer if you did the crime, but if you do that, well, they sort of have to like keep silent on that because it's client attorney privilege. However, if you tell your lawyer, I am going to commit various and unforgivable war crimes, then they are forced, like ethically, like client attorney privileges vanishes, and like they are forced to report it to like the legal authorities. I hope that makes sense. Like, yes, they can keep a lot in private. Like, for example, like a doctor is not gonna report you for like taking drugs or something like that. But if your behavior is dangerous to other people or to yourself, like self-harm or whatnot, then they have a duty to like report it. So it's similar, but it's slightly different. It's like, it's the same family. They're like all cousins. Client attorney privileges, doctor-patient secret, NDA, under the same family, but slightly different. So I guess you can call them similar in a sense. Okay, so I guess as an introduction, because I'm seeing like a lot of new names here, and I don't know if, and considering, I'm hoping this is gonna be good VOD material, a small introduction for those who don't know me. I guess we can pull up to like here, actually here. Okay, so for those who don't know me, I am ZAN-VT, I am a VTuber consultant, and I do mostly business consulting for VTuber and agencies, primarily agencies at this point. Public relation, branding, telecommunication, crisis management, etc. List not extensive. Generally anything that's like business related, HR related, stuff that you don't necessarily think about at first, but are like imperative to running a business. Generally people will ask me for help to deal with that, get a second opinion and whatnot. List can go on. As for experience, I've been doing this in the VTuber world for like a bit over 2 years now, I think 2.5, something like that. I'll need to check in again, but yeah, between 2 and 2.5 years. And I've been in like things around like communication and public relation and whatnot for like 3.5 years, including like my work at like IRL jobs. I have multiple degrees. I have like a bachelor and license, in communication and in communication, social media, and marketing. So I'm pretty stacked on that end. I'm not just coming here as a random person. I've actually put in the work. I went to a very good and very expensive private Catholic school that I had to pay for with my own money, with my own work, with my own sweat. It feels good to earn things. Anyway, I'm just saying that because it's normal for some people to like question your credibility as a professional, especially when I tend to be, more vocal and opinionated than I think most people in my profession tend to be. But most people in my profession are snakes and assholes, so I don't really care. I'll do it my way. And yet, I feel absolutely zero insecurities about it. I've got the degrees, I've put in the work, I've got the experience. I'm fine. Fun fact, actually, if you look at like the post I made yesterday about like the importance of like corporate structure in VTubing, in like the ecosystem, I have actually a QRT that happened a couple hours ago of someone accusing me of writing with AI. Oh, that felt so hilarious. I'm kind of conflicted on it. Because, like, on one side, I'm like, have so many people become, like, so illiterate that anything that's, like, sounds slightly too wordy or complicated is immediately AI to them? Or are just people so obsessed with AI that they see AI everywhere? That's a good question. Good food for thought for you guys. Zavok, which again asks, too bad you can put those in public portfolio. Yes, I mean, you will find public relation professionals that do have public portfolios and do share who they work with. I've made a post about this like a month or two ago that I'm pretty sure you can find, where I explain my reasoning in why I don't do that. I don't have a public portfolio and I don't share openly who I work with. The only people who like eventually might learn who I work with are people in the industry, CEOs, corporate managers, stuff like that. Because to be realistic, PR is not very favorably looked at, and that's fine, because people look at PR and see more of the manipulative side. That's a great example I like to use. When people think public relationship, they think of Nestle. We totally didn't terminated all those African childs by selling our faulty, over sugary, diabetes-free products, and flooded the market with that and paid all the doctors to give them as supplements to all those African women. Nah. We didn't do that, right? And generally, that's what I think people see PR as, more as a way for like companies to like manipulate and get away with bad behavior, which it's not and it shouldn't be. But a lot of like PR professionals don't have a lot of ethics, unfortunately. And yeah, some of them aren't afraid to like say some pretty scandalous stuff that like under any like there are very few countries on earth where morally they will be okay with you feeding diabetes supplements to babies. So no, it's fine. It's whatever. So no, I don't do that because people have a bad image of PR. People might attempt to harass people I work with because I'm a bit more vocal than most people. I'm a bit opinionated, and I just think like it's good for their privacy, right? If it's made public that someone has hired some PR, you may think, oh, well, have they done something bad? What are they hiding? That's like unnecessary scrutiny that they don't necessarily deserve or need. So I just think it's better for their privacy as well, right? Like we all are, I think. I mean, if you watch me, you're probably a bit more into like the deeper side of VTubing, so you probably understand the concept of schizos, right? And how far some of them can take that. So I just think it's just better for everyone involved. My portfolio remains private, and that's how I've been doing. And it's, does it limit my opportunities? Absolutely, it does. I struggle sometimes to get like contracted because people have a hard time trusting someone who doesn't have a portfolio. Yet at the same time, I know that if they're smart enough, they know they're going to value the fact that there's no portfolios, because then they know that like I take the client privacy very seriously. Anyway, to go back to the main point, VTuber Guide to Ethics and Legalities. So, I guess we can look really quick at what is ethics. So, Jake Light wrote, "What is ethics? I originally made this guide on the presumption that most people know what ethics are, though some clarity is warranted so that all can view this document as clearly as possible. Ethics is a set of moral principles that determine what actions are considered right or wrong. As we all know, where, why, and how we reach how a set of moral principles to follow differs from a vast amount of factors: scientific knowledge, politics, religion, culture, tradition, personal experience, etc." You know, we can philosophically debate for hours stuff that philosophers have been doing for 200 years on, like, is there objective morality? That's not the case here. So for the sake of like just trudging this along, we're gonna say that this is true. Not going to get into a deep philosophical dive. However, in order to live harmoniously in any community or public space, we have to compromise certain personal bias and belief to achieve that. It's the same. And in the same space created by VTubers and content creators, the purpose of this guy isn't the guide to tell you what I think is right or wrong, or at least try to, but what most people in this type of space usually do. One thing that, like, you know, I'm gonna overview through this part because it's not the topic today, but what I've noticed in this part as well, and that's going to like resonate in the public relation part as well, is that there's no precision on one type of ethics are we talking about. Are we talking about like business ethics, how you conduct business between yourself, other people, between an agency and other entities? Are we talking about social relationship ethics, like how you treat your coworkers, how you're supposed to work together? Are we talking more about like more practical ethics, as in like content creators, the relationship you have with your fan, how you treat them, how you talk to them? It may sound silly, but there's a real difference between all these three, and some of them are more prone to like personal opinion or more of a generalist idea than not. You know, some people will tell you getting too close to your fan is bad, where others completely embrace that and they call it GFE or BFE, whatever you like. I don't judge. We don't kick shame there. And some of them will say that, well, GFE is like unethical or amoral, or not amoral. No, that's not the word I'm looking for. Well, it's not morally good, basically. But some other people on the other hand will tell you that, at least that's why I believe, there is an ethical way to do GFE and there's a way to treat your audience right. And then as without going into the other types of ethics, I think that like largely issue with this document is just the scope creep on it is pretty insane. And honestly, I kind of get trying to do like a more generalist document. Yeah, at the same time, giving a guide on moral and ethics, that's complicated. You can't really do a generalist document about that. It's just gonna depend so much on the person, on what you considered ethical, what is your basis for judging that morality. Well, here apparently it's like what most people in this type of space usually do. That seems to be like the basis for like this part. Like this is the moral ground on which ethics are judged here. But even then, there are so many different people that are gonna give you 10 different answers for this, especially in VTubing, which is a very like... It's a space with a lot of different type of people, right? You're gonna have some Filipinos, you're gonna have some NA people, you're gonna have some Europeans. Like, it's just so vast that like I'm not sure you can really use that as a basis either. Jackie Force says, "There's no right or wrong option in how you interact with your fans if it pushes the narrative you want for your brand, I think. It's not just narrative, right? It's also about like how comfortable are you with what you're doing? Like, does that reflect you? Are you the type of person who wants to like form meaningful parasocial relationship with your fans? Do you want your fans to like really look up to you and like treat them more as like super fans or like distant friends or stuff like that? You know, obviously there's like a lot of moral ambiguity that comes with that, and you know, it's still important to set your boundaries in place, but it's not just the narrative that you want to set for yourself and your brand, it's also what you want to do as a content creator, right? What type of content you want to make, what type of viewers you want to attract. It's a bit more than that, but yeah, I guess calling it like a narrative is a start. Anyway, let's move on to the part at hand that interests us, and that we're gonna be talking about at length. What is public relation or PR? Simply put, it is the professional management or a person or organization representation that is known to the public. And honestly, that is the only part that you need. Everything else, you can cut off. It's useless. I mean, it's more so an opinion of the writer, right? It's more so the opinion of Jake. I'm still gonna read it for the sake of people who are listening to it only. So, Jake says as well, from making sure your streams or uploads are in compliance with laws, rules, and guidelines, which, by the way, that has nothing to do with PR. It's purely like legalese type of discussion. Anyway, to having any political, religious, or moral opinion that are acceptable and publicly known. Okay, I'm just gonna read it, alright. Are all considered part of PR. How good you are at PR determines how good your reputation will be to the general public. Having good PR means people view you in a good light based on what you have done, which can be publicly known, whether the act was done privately or publicly. That said, it does not necessarily mean you will be more successful in content, more views, more interesting content, but it does prevent to reduce your likelihood to lose business opportunities or relationship with other people and companies that put importance to this kind of matters. Okay, so to trudge along on that, I'm just gonna quickly pull back the post I made because after thinking about it, like my opinion still hasn't changed on it. We're basically... I think that introduction is a bit incorrect, and this is more something ChatGPT would give you. It is neither the academic nor the practical definition. So PR or public relation is simply that, managing the relationship between an entity and the public, different audiences that are part of that public. If you are slightly knowledgeable on the topic, the expression having good PR is a bit of a meme in by itself. Because you see, you have having good PR as equal to, where's my equal on this damn keyboard, it's here, equal to being liked. Not licked, liked. God damn it. And you have having good PR as having an effective PR plan. Even I can mix the two sometimes because, you know, it's like something that we all say out of habit, but from like a document that is trying to like guide people and explain the concepts, I'd hope for more than just like the common everyday use definition that we use. Because it's important to make the difference right. Because some people aren't liked, but they have great PR, as in they have an effective plan on how they manage their relationship with the public. If we look at like, let's take an example of a big streamer. Let's say Asmongold, right? Let's take someone a bit controversial. You can say he has terrible PR, as in being liked. You know, he's definitely controversial. Some people definitely don't agree with the things he does or say. He's had, you know, his controversies or two. So you wouldn't say he's like being liked or like generally has a positive image. Yet at the same time, you can say that Asmongold has great PR. Why? Because he has identified his audience. Yet at the same time, he's not a slave to it. Because if you look at like people, I'm gonna take another famous example. If you look at people like Sneeko, right? He's basically a slave to his audience, right? Because I mean, with the recent clip of him trying to emulate Alex Jones, it's pretty evident that he's very insecure. Because basically, he's not a person anymore. He's just like an extension of the audience and the ideology they subscribe to, and so that means he has terrible PR, as in like he doesn't have a good relationship with the public in question, which is his audience, because he's basically terrified of them. Whereas if you look at like someone like Asmongold, he's very safe and secure with his audience. Sometimes he isn't afraid to like go against his audience, have opinion his audience doesn't agree with, and be his own person. And if you ask me, well, that's great PR. You also have, if I say Tenma from Face Connect, sometimes Tenma would say the wildest shit you've ever heard. She will post extremely questionable things on Twitter. Yet at the same time, it's great PR. Why? Because her audience loves it. And she isn't afraid to be controversial at times and to ride that wave. You don't have to necessarily be liked to be famous, to be popular, to be successful as a content creator. And that's really something I highlighted in my original reply, right? People who are unknowledgeable on the topic will simply boil it down to the expression having good PR, when it is simply one aspect, one approach, one policy, one choice. PR is about managing your image. It is absolutely a viable strategy to nuke your own image, as in, people thinking that you're a terrible person, basically. Being controversial, being infamous, being edgy, these are attractive to enough people to make them viable strategies. We have examples all around us, whether that be in VTubing, entertainment, and politics. That's the idea, right? You don't have to having good PR doesn't necessarily mean you're liked, or you're generally appreciated by the public, or that you have a good image with people. Now, you could say I'm like being pedantic. Yet again, if this is a document that is trying to like explain things from an expert perspective, I personally don't really see it. The words that's important here is like strategy, right? Like it's one thing to be controversial, infamous, edgy, and all that. But if you're just that, then people are quickly gonna move on to the next guy that's controversial. Like you're not gonna retain an audience. What's important is that it needs to be like a thoughtful strategy. You need to think about it. Like, what type of audience am I attracting? Do I want an audience that like is more attracted to like edgier jokes, an edgier type of content, who like is more into the I'm not afraid of saying wild stuff because I think they're funny, not because I genuinely believe them, which that's a lot of people, by the way. I think too many people, sometimes even in the VTubing industry, have decided that like whenever someone says something is because they believe it. No, come on, I mean, that's not how people work, right? Sometimes you just say stuff because you think they're funny, and that doesn't necessarily mean you agree with them, right? I don't think that's a wild, controversial statement I'm making right now. Excuse me, reading a comment real fast. Fallout 3 DLC Master. I've always felt that GFE and BFE creates a minefield that your future self that will fail to avoid, as you will eventually beg the inclusion or idol Rusha drama. Let me think for a sec. I mean, it is a relevant point to bring up, and the problem with Rusha is that she went too far, quote unquote. the thing that's important is that if you're doing GFE or BFE, you need to set clear boundaries for both the audience and yourself, and you need to stick to it. The issue is that Rusha didn't do that. Dude, she went as far as to have a merch that were wedding rings. Hello? Do you realize how far the deep end we're getting right now? It's not just like a I love you, you're my favorite watcher, or something like that. No. Married. She went very far, and she really cultivated that more extremely parasocial to a fault side of her audience. Like, she was DMing whales and having one-on-one private discussion with them. Basically, you can do GFE and BFE, but you need those boundaries and to respect it. The reason Rusha had such an immense crash out is because she absolutely ignored everything and she went off the deep end. She disrespected those boundaries, and well, it's just, there's just some things you don't do, man. And I'm like, I can't really blame the people who like had her that created many a great clip of people crashing out at Rusha, great pictures as well of people burning her merch and stuff. You can still find those Rusha wedding rings on eBay, by the way. If you go on eBay right now, you will find plenty of those, and I encourage you to buy those, because at this point they're like pieces of VTuber history. VTuber lore. One day, I promise you guys, I'll buy one of them. This is basically like the Sonichu of VTubing for like GFE VTuber. Like, I gotta have one. It's just too funny. As long as you respect your audience and do that, and respect your own boundaries and the boundaries you have with them, you should be fine, right? The issue is people who lose themselves into the GFE to the point that they forget to differentiate that this is, a role play, this is acting, and when you lose that differential between your actual self and your VTuber self, as like the character that is role playing, well, that can create issues. I'd love actually to do like a study or a deep dive into that topic of like how people cope with having those two like identities. Like, on one hand they're VTuber, but also they're a person. It was a Jenga tower with GFE experience. Yeah, sort of. That's a good analogy for it. And I mean, and the cookie crumble. There's a post I made a long time ago, that was 2 years ago. I think I was starting out on doing this stuff, where I explained that, like, if you're doing like heavy GFE, I'm not talking light GFE, I'm doing heavy GFE, as in like, I love you, etc., etc. You're going a bit more in the deep end. Objectively speaking, it is probably better for you, both as like a career choice and like mentally speaking, that you actually like don't get into a relationship. Obviously, like, people can do whatever they want. I know some people who are deep into GFE who have girlfriends and boyfriends. I worked with some of them, but I've always told them that like they should be very careful about that. There's the moral aspect of, it's a bit of a me thing, but like, how can you say I love you to anyone else but your partner? It just feels icky to me. It feels disrespectful. It feels like emotional cheating almost. That's not something I'm like super comfortable with, right? And there's also like the aspect that like, if it's known, then people may react just like they did with Rusha and have those massive crash out and stuff. And well, if your audience crashes out, as we've seen with Russia, well, consequences will be dire. So, I guess it's better if we finish the rest of the argument I made here, alright? So I posted after that, sometimes you will have to make an announcement that will damage your reputation, like an agency announcing a graduation/termination, for example. I cannot tell you the amount of time I've had agencies reach out to me asking for help on that aspect. Like, you have to make that announcement. Sometimes people just make mistakes that are like unforgivable or breaks the contract so much that you have no choice but to terminate them. You may want to forgive them, but if you forgive them, like, what message does that send to the rest of your coworkers that you can willingly break the rule and get away with it? you know, unfortunately, sometimes you sort of have to make an example and terminate a talent, even though you wish you could keep them. And well, they know that like it will be poorly received by the audience, because you know generally the audience receives termination, especially public terminations, very poorly, because you know they see it as like a humiliation ritual, which it can turn into. But that doesn't mean every single one of them is. You know, you need the intent of making it an humiliation ritual for it to be one. When most of the time it's simply just we had no choice but to do this. And you know, that's like the ethical way of like terminating someone. You know, you're doing this because you have to, not because you want to. I will read your comment right after. Let me just finish this part. Because just like life, when it comes to business, there are ups and downs, success and failures. At that moment, the role of the PR expert is to minimize the loss of reputation. This is called crisis management, one of the main roles of PR. This is one of the main things I'm generally hired to do, is crisis management, help people, you know, go through those hard times when they have to make like a public statement that they know will go down poorly with the public. And sometimes you have no choice, you know, you have to make those statements because, well, sometimes, you know, it just doesn't work. Sometimes you genuinely just fail. No malice, no like gravitas mistake. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. Sometimes you just fail. And, well, you know, you, at the end of the day, agencies and have talents to make content for the audience, right? So the audience deserve to know that this is happening. You know, sometimes you have to like face the music, and that's when I come in to try my best to like communicate the appropriate sentiment to the audience, that they receive the message that like this is done because they have no choice, not because, you know, they're malicious or anything. You can center PR around one concept, narrative building. Now, obviously, many different experts will give you many different answers to like what is like the most important thing about PR. But if you ask me, and one of the things that did most certainly highlighted as important when I studied communication and PR was exactly that, narrative building. Whether it's creating a sub-story comeback narrative to frame yourself as a go-getter underdog and attract sympathy, or portraying yourself as another victim of a broken machine, another cog to diminish your role and negative impact as an influential employee of a black company. You know, those are just examples, right? But the most important part is like narrative building, because you know, generally, when you speak, it's because you want to transmit a message, right? Especially when you're making like an official statement. When something begins with like official statement, or I want to say something important or something like that, generally it's because there's a message, right, that you want to transmit to the audience. And so what you're gonna do with like all these fancy lines of text is create that narrative. You know, you're gonna use a bunch of stylistic figure, you know, maybe make an analogy there, maybe make a gradation there. You know, you're gonna use all those writing techniques to essentially transmit a message to your audience. You know, that message can be a feeling, message can be a sentiment, that message can be, well, where we're, what happened, where we are going now. And, well, it's important that you get those down properly, right? And so to me, that's like just so important to like public relation, because anytime like you're going to speak to like your audience in like a serious tone, it's because you want to say to say something important, right? Transmit a message and hope to God that your audience understand what you're getting at, right? And so that's where you have like a PR consultant or a PR professional like myself come in, right? To help you figure out how to transmit that message as properly and as optimally as possible, so the most amount of people can understand it. That's like my role. Looking at the comments, and there's a couple. Can't forget the drama that surrounded Niji Vox and his hyper-obsessive fans. That's a deep rabbit hole by itself, because, you know, he entertains some of his like most extreme GFE fans, and you know, like this. If you want to go down that rabbit hole, all I'm gonna say is that he really liked those Chinese cosplayers. that's a rabbit hole I'm not gonna get into today. BF Experience has some stuff too with cabaret stuff like Lounge Girl or Guys, when you get something to well make you feel seen and heard, even though it's just meant for sale in the end. Yeah, basically, you know, like those bars. You know, in Japan they have those bars, right? Where you pay someone to like spend time with you and they make you drink and stuff. Well, you also have those bars in like the Western world, just that we have a different name for that. But you know what I mean, right? Escorts, you know, likewise, same thing. You pay them to like, essentially, you know, it's for money. It's a service you're buying, but it's because you need that like emotional fulfillment that you feel like you can only get from paying someone. We can talk at length about like the ethical issues and the mental health issues that come with like buying that sort of product and engaging with that sort of content, but it's another topic. It exists. We have to acknowledge its existence, and it's profitable for reasons because a lot of people seemingly desire it. And I agree, it's very similar. Basically, your favorite GF VTuber is like an escort. God damn it, what am I saying? You know, feel free to clip those and tell how much of a sick fuck I am on Twitter. I will retweet those. BF Fat Stinger says, some graduation were understandable, like the Sana with Hololive, where it's medical and they couldn't keep up. Yeah, you know, more often than not, there are reasons behind every graduation, and it is reasonable. Now, I know, and I'm sure you guys know as well, that we know for a fact that there are graduations that are in fact not reasonable. But more often than not, graduations happens for a reason. I don't think people understand, like, a graduation is like a massive loss for any agency. You're losing the model, you're losing all the money you put in to get assets, you're losing, like, you know, the content that person was making, you're losing the merch, you're losing like the concerts and whatnot, the meet and greet opportunities. Like, this is a massive loss on investment, right? It is financially grueling for an agency to terminate someone. It is a catastrophe, it is a tragedy. Generally, unless you are super rich and can afford it, every graduation is like a knife through the heart. It absolutely destroys your finances, especially if you're a smaller agency. As an example, recently, you know, Eroy had a graduation of one of their talents. Can you guys imagine, like, they're like barely starting out still, like how financially devastating that must be for them to look like one of their first generation talents so early? I'm sure it's not a decision that came in easy. I'm sure it's not a decision they wanted to make, but I'm sure it's a decision they had to do, right? And that's true for most agencies. What other agency can I think about? Variance Project, you know, who terminated Fido. Initially, I had a poor reaction myself, but after thinking about it, I'm like, I mean, you know, they're a smaller, newer agency. Surely they had a reason to do this, right? Because again, it is a financial catastrophe to graduate one of your talent, especially when you're a smaller or newer agency. So generally, those happen because they have no choice, and because, well, they have to. And it blows, but it is what it is, right? VTuber Consulting says, yeah, the public doesn't see what goes on behind the scenes, and so while termination might be obvious to the agency, the audience hasn't seen any of the build-up, and then ideas limit what you can say. Yeah. To an extent, you know, agencies are business entities, they're companies. They can only ask for so much compassion and empathy, right? There's only so much you can give to like something that exists to make profit. Yet at the same time, we know that there are some VTuber groups and agencies who don't necessarily exist to make profit. But you know, still, most of those exist to make profit, and eventually most of those will have to turn around and eventually decide ask themselves the big question. Do we want to keep losing money on this? Or do we want to try and like break even at the very least? Because you know, VTubing's very expensive, man. graduating a VTuber is graduating so much art asset. Yes, and it's not just the art asset. You also have the toggles. Again, you have all the content that they could be making that they won't be making. You have the merch, the concert, the meet and greets, the voice packs, the membership, the subs, the extra reach, the collab potential, the body that you can send out and spread words about your agency name. You lose so much when you have a single termination, especially so early. Okay, I think that's like enough answering the comments now. Let's go back to that. The fact that the very introduction of the PR section, the definition of the concept of public relations, is inaccurate and uninformed absolutely nukes any credibility for the entire section. Because it is going off an inaccurate premise, everything in this section is tainted because it is built around an inaccurate definition. I don't think that part needs a lot of explaining. So let's look at what else was said exactly. That I can hopefully comment on. In the context of VTuber, anyone that makes content and is to communicate with others on a regular basis need to maintain a good PR. Now, this argument is used here as in like trying to like collab with other people and stuff. And I'm gonna say, this is just not true. I mean, it is true, but it's also not true. It's more complicated than that. Some people who are like more controversial will be refused some sponsorship, some partnership, some collabs, because you know they're not viewed positively by a lot of people. You know, it is real. That's a real thing. Yes, at time you have people who will receive those same opportunities and collabs because of the opposite, because they are controversial, because they aren't afraid to like speak their mind or whatnot, and because there are like-minded people like them, you know. And if we look at like, actually that's a great example. Let's look at like Cinder, right? Cinder, despite like, you know, largely being seen unfavorably following, you know, her whole drama with like Bao, Nanobite, Shilili and whatnot, she still had people who offered to collab with her, and she still resumed the collab train really fast. You know, she just made a new friend group and moved on and stuff. Because to an extent, PR is not necessarily about maintaining a good relationship at all time. It's like, you know, you need to view like public relation and like good standing as like currency that you can spend in exchange for money or opportunities. Like, am I willing to associate with this person who is maybe slightly more controversial because I think there's enough incentive or benefits for me in it? Like getting more viewers, getting more attention, getting people to speak about me, getting money. You know, at the end of the day, we live in a capitalistic world, right? It's I've said that yesterday when I talked about like the importance of agencies in the ecosystem. It's about incentives, right? It's about, do I gain something from doing this? And very often you will see that some people aren't afraid to run alongside people who are, let's say, viewed more negatively because they are just popular enough, they generate enough money that you think you have something to gain from it. That's why we also see often, that's the exact reason why we see so often like VTweeter and like smaller VTuber sometimes saying incredibly controversial stuff, starting dramas, directly targeting bigger VTuber, because, well, the incentive for them is that they have nothing to lose, they don't have a career yet. So, you know, might as well like go 100% at it, be immediately super controversial to try and like get enough attention to generate an audience. Basically, you know, essentially it's sort of what Chachachila did, right? When she had that whole drama with Florka and SVA. Granted, she had a career that like spent years and stuff, but she felt like... No, actually, like, it's maybe not a good example because I am attributing like the fact that like she did this intentionally, when maybe it could just be that, you know, she's really just that Manhara, which, you know, is a possibility. Well, I guess I can't really give an exact example then, because, you know, it's you should be really careful about like attributing intent to people, because it's very hard to prove. I guess I'm just not gonna give a good example. I don't know, just imagine your average V-tweeter going after, I don't know, Tomoe Umari, Kirche Vestal, Shai Lily, whatever. You know, the incentive there is that they don't have an audience yet, and that by stirring up shit, they're hoping that they're gonna get an audience from that. Whether it be people that dislike the VTuber they're going after, whether it be people that like genuinely agree with like the opinion they're making, whether it's just people looking for tea or drama. You know, the list, I can make a pretty long list, right? So that's the incentive for them. And sometimes you will compromise your good PR because you think it's worth it. Inevitably, your content would be shared to public space where people would see and more often than not make judgment based on the content you put out. I mean, yeah. Everyone judge everyone, like that's nothing new. If you do put out content in a way that may be controversial, unethical, illegal, unprofessional, so as are those people making judgments who start making allegations against you, aka call-outs. Yes, that does certainly happens. I mean, I myself have not been afraid to confront people at times. If you do not resolve this call-out in a professional manner, there's a high probability that it will further negatively affect your reputation, mental health, and your future career or interest as a VTuber. Now here's the thing that I take an issue with, in this part specifically. You have an entire part about addressing callouts, and when I look below at do not dismiss or ignore all accusation or controversial matter related to you, that is low priority. You know, that doesn't exactly mesh well with the point that this VTuber lawyers, Jake like, is making here, right? Put a pin on that, we'll come back to that again later when I get to that specific section. Example of who needs PR, not exhaustive, not mutually exclusive from each other. I'm gonna make it easy to you guys. Probably almost every single VTuber would need some PR savviness. They would need to understand that they need to do things for a purpose, you know. If you've been following, listening, watching, whatever, me for a long time, you know if there's one thing that I absolutely love above everything, it's purposefulness. When you're doing something for the sake of doing it without like a specific reason behind it. Because my first question is then, why do anything at all? Right? Like every single person is gonna need, that's like going to like be a VTuber, be a public figure, to an extent would need some PR training, some PR savviness, some PR coaching, right? Yet at the same time, the truth of the matter is if I look at like myself, there's some people I've outright refused because they're too small, not because I think badly of like smaller VTuber. I mean, I think it's clear enough if you're slightly knowledgeable above me that I hang out with smaller VTuber all the time. I'm friends with a bunch of them and I'm perfectly comfortable with that. It's more so that like, you don't necessarily need to worry too much about PR to an extent if you like aren't stupid. Don't be stupid as being one of the most evergreen thing to say for a long time, because it remains true to this day. Just don't be fool. Don't be a fool. Don't be a fool, and you should mostly fine. Once you reach a certain point, then yes, you will have people try to call out, to go after you in like disingenuous manner, and that's when having a bit of PR savviness is more effective, when having a bit of coaching is more effective. But you know, it's like you need to reach like a certain size and influence within your career, because otherwise, like, I don't take these smaller people because I'm afraid that I'm just, you know, like taking a lollipop from a kid, right? I'm like taking money from people who don't necessarily need my services at the moment. Like I've had brand new VTuber try to reach out to me and ask these questions when I offered them free advice, and you know, that was it. Like I don't even know if the dude was gonna keep streaming or if it was just gonna stop after a week. So I don't want to be stealing people's money, so I'm just gonna say no. So yeah, you don't need a list. Everyone that's like a public entity would need some form of PR training and PR savviness, but generally just don't be dumb will work well enough for a very long time. How to maintain good public relations. This is the ultimate question, where we need to preface again that we are not experts on this subject, and our answer may not be agreeable with you for whatever reason you choose to believe. Was that part originally there? I don't remember it being there. Was it a later addition? Hmm. I don't remember. Well, let's just skip over it. General approaches, public image. If your platform has become so big that your content has expanded to involve other people working with or that you become part of a bigger group of content creator on a legal contractual basis, perhaps you might need to hire an actual PR expert to consult all these matters. I don't remember if that was there before. Was there? Because yes, that would be the part that I would agree with the most, especially if you start getting involved with like a group or anything. Then yeah, you don't even need to hire me. You can talk to like other more veteran content creator, and I'm sure they would give you great advice as well, right? Only get like help like professionally from me or someone like me if you really feel like you need it, right? And sometimes there are certain topics that you can't like talk to with friends. There are just certain topics that like you can't really share with other people, because at the VTubing is pretty cutthroat, right? So sometimes it's better to keep your secret for yourselves. And some people are like barely new that they join content creator group, so just because you join a group not necessarily mean you need PR. But you have to understand, I guess, the concept when you join a group that like what you do can and will negatively impact others around you, right? To go back to an example that I've made, that's the exact reason why Asmongold left OTK and stuff like that, because he knew that like he was getting into more political and controversial content, and he didn't want to like harm his friends and stuff like that in any way, shape, or form. So he decided to like leave the content creator group. He decided to leave OTK, right? Which was a very mature and smart decision, right? Excuse me, getting a quick drink in. Okay. Social interaction, making genuine connection and friendship with others. I'm not sure what that's in like good public relations, because like that feels more like a social thing, right? If I look at like one of my Yoshi, Lucy Pyre, for the longest time she wouldn't collab much with anyone, and she still managed to build quite a successful career with thousands of people watching her. I don't remember when she did her first collab, but she was already pretty decent sized by then. And it's not like people hated her or anything. You don't. Some people just don't like collabs and they just do everything by themselves, and that's fine. And like that doesn't like means you're gonna be liked by. That's a way to like get good public relations in general, right? And making genuine connection and friendship can be important, because obviously collabs are valuable. That's why people do them, because you share an audience. It's a good way to make other people discover you. It makes a unique type of content that you can't have in like other stream, because you bounce off of each other humor and stuff like that. And if you have good chemistry with someone, then you just make bangers that people are gonna remember and love. Generally people remember a lot of things, right? But whenever I ask people what some of their favorite piece of content are, more often than not, it's gonna be a collab with like other people they really like. Or it's gonna be a concert or something like that. Something memorable. I mean, of course, like your people are tend to gonna remember that more, because they're rarer, and people are not necessarily gonna remember an average Tuesday stream unless it grows infamous or something because of some reason. But still, collabs are valuable. That's a fact. And so yeah, generally it's good to like have find collab partners or find friends or find companionship. But at the same time, VTubing is part of the entertainment industry, right? And I think we've seen enough drama to know that it's a universe that can be fairly cutthroat, right? The PGM stopped. Let me resume it. Um, it's a pretty cutthroat and sharky environment, right? People aren't afraid sometimes to like backstab each other, reveal each other's dirty laundry, get into one controversy, and that's generally an advice I've actually gave to some people. Is like, if you're unsure who's your friend, get into some kind of major controversy and you'll quickly find out, right? When the chips are down and people need to either stand by you or stand against you because they never really genuinely connected with you, you'll notice pretty quickly, right? I mean, people don't necessarily have to like side by you and like openly go and defend you, but like, between defending you and not saying anything to like avoid getting smokes and like outright going out of their way to go against you, I feel like there's a decision that's being made there, So yes. By the way, don't do follow for follow, it's garbage. Follow for follow is a tactic that like used to work 10-15 years ago, but algorithms have changed a lot since then. Generally, the algorithm favors genuine interaction and followers that interact with what you post rather than just pure numbers. Hi Snackle Fox. 10 to 15 years ago, that advice was true. Follow for follow was definitely a decent strat because the algorithm favored pure numbers more. But a lot has changed since then, and all type of algorithms in general are gonna promote quality content over pure numbers. It's like one of the reasons why I said that this is so uninformed is because that's advice that like 10 or 15 years old. Jake, you're too late. Oh, he wrote them as unethical. My bad, I misread that. It's not unethical. It's just bad. It's just trash. It's not unethical. It's just trash. Okay. Okay, let me read that just to make sure. Many that do use the promise of friendship support for our own benefit. Yes, that is true. Thanks for recognizing that. But it's not unethical, dude. This follow for follow shit is just terrible. The algorithm doesn't favor it at all. Mass following others in the hope of being followed back in social platform. I mean, it's not unethical. It's sort of like, who cares, right? I mean, I know some people get butthurt at like getting followed, then following back, then unfollowing. Like, you shouldn't care, guys. Like, who cares? I just unfollow them and move on. Or like, keep following and like, don't care. Like, you're above this. Like, why are you being so petty, Rare? Who, genuinely, why should you care about shit like this? You shouldn't. Request friendship from others' post. Yeah. Fair enough. Like, at some point you gotta reach out, DM people, I guess, but you can't really ask for friendship, ask to know and see if you vibe with people first. I would agree, it's not so that it's unethical, that it's, a bit socially stigmatized to, like, ask openly for friendship under someone's post, unless this is some kind of bit or jokes or whatnot, Create posts that are supposed to promote smaller VTuber. I mean, I guess it's unethical because you could call it cloud chasing. Sure, fair enough. That's one part I actually agree with. But, at this point, we've seen that thing being done to death so much that I feel like most people are aware of this. And, I feel like it's pretty easy to tell the difference between support small VTuber and quote-unquote support small VTubers, right? I don't think it's that complicated to like see the difference. Pretending to be interested in a person's content. Again, I wouldn't call that unethical. You're just this is just antisocial behavior. This is not unethical. Why are we bringing ethics into this? This is just someone being an asshole. And you know, okay, to be fair to an extent, everyone will pretend to be interested in a person's content at some point. And like, they just watch clips. You know, we all do it sometimes. Like, I can't really shame people too hard for that. Now, people that swear that like they're hyper fan and try to use that as like a cudgel to like beat you over the head with, then yes, shame them for faking being interested in your content when they're clearly not. But at the same time, you know, this is like the social game, roleplay game of Masked. This is the masquerade. You know, the masquerade is a real thing. We all play this social game, and to an extent we sort of have to embrace it while being reasonable about it, obviously. It's been a very long time since I've seen support smaller VTuber post, actually. I guess it was meta when this was written, when he started writing this, maybe. It's not to sell VTubers. I've done this. I've malicious or selfish intent. Yeah. There can be people who have generally interest in getting to know other people, but from years of interacting with such VTuber have made me conclude it's better to take your own initiative rather than relying on them. Yeah. More likely than not, these kind of people are unable to keep their promises or have a shallow definition of what friendship means to them. Awfully true. That's the part I would most certainly agree with. Usually their target will only find out about it when much time has passed. See, this doesn't feel like PR advice. This seems like just general social advice. I'm not sure why this is called PR or ethics. This is just decent, good, human, professional advice, right? Why is this under a PR section? This feels widely inaccurate. I guess this is your relationship with others, and since PR is maintaining your relationship with other people, technically it can be that, but PR isn't gonna be like a one-to-one relationship between you and a content creator. That's not PR. That's just that, a personal relationship. PR is more so gonna be a relationship with like all content VTubers, all content creators in general, with like an agency, with like a group. Generally, PR is not one-on-one, it's toward a group, an audience, a target audience. Don't know. Again, most of the issues I have with this is that it's just not in its proper place. And would I call that high priority? No. I would say it's like medium priority maybe at most, because you know, some people will never collab and never interact with people and do perfectly fine. There are VTubers like that who just do their stuff in their corner and don't interact with anybody, and they do just fine. I've worked with people like that. You don't necessarily need to do this. Additionally, the person that uses this tactic is not often called out on. I disagree a bit, and you don't necessarily need to call out when, you know, it's so evident that they're not being honest, right? You don't necessarily need to call out everything. The silent social stigma is a real thing, right? Like, people talk, people know. People are not, I mean, many people are dumb, but not everyone's dumb. Because when the affected person realizes they've been used, the person at fault has already amassed a loyal following and evidence is hard to come by, and it attempted to discredit said person. I mean, what? Okay, I'm not sure I really get that part. Hold on. So trying to get back at them for using you and trying to get them cancelled? I mean, it's useless. Like you said, they already have an audience. Like, why would you even think about that? Like, it's just, I mean, if you feel like you've been used, like described here, it's probably best to just cut off all ties and move on. Sometimes you have to ask yourself, is this worth my time? is this generally a serious problem? Because, like, you know, you will lose friendship, you will be deceived, you will have people act like fake friends all the time. Everyone knows that this is something that happens in real life, professionally, in VTubing, doesn't matter, it just happens. Most of the time it's best to just cut off all ties and move on, because there's just no point, there's nothing to gain from going after someone like this. Unless, you know, they're really being abusive and gaslighty and, like, they're generally trying to be malicious about it, then yeah. But if they're generally trying to be malicious about it, then generally you have proof of that behavior, right? You have screenshots, you have chat exchanges, you have more than enough proof to showcase, to show people that this person is not genuine and is just using people in a very psychopathic way, right? Most of the time it's best to just cut off ties and move on. Not worth it. Don't lose your time and energy on people like this. To summarize, it is a red flag if you are the person attempting or interacting with people that are taking the above actions. I don't know if it's a red flag, you know. I mean, you know, when I look at most of this, I'm like, those are just stupid people. It's not a red flag. It's just people be stupid sometimes, you know. I'd say the one that's like a bit more red flaggy to me is create posts that are request friendship from others' posts. That's the one thing that I will say does come across as a potential red flag, and I would agree with people who defend this as an argument. Like, straight up under someone post asking for friendship, that's unless you're like being playful or making part of a joke, you know, like, you like gacha slop too, let's be friends, you know. You're not necessarily asking to be friend true. It's basically a way for you to open a funny conversation and DMs and see if you vibe with one another, right? But again, I'm saying this and I feel like that feels like it's something basic that everyone is capable of understanding, you know, that feels like common sense. But I guess maybe that needs to be said because, you know, a lot of VTubers are, myself included, are a bit on the have a bit of the tism, you know. So sometimes social interaction, we can not necessarily understand them. So, you know, if you're one of those people, I can tell you that, like, it's important that you read the message and try to glean the intent of someone who's posting it. If someone is just saying, oh, you're popular, let's be friends, well, at least it's a message that's being transmitted, then yeah, probably a red flag. But someone saying, oh, we have similar interests, let's be friends, as in, let's start a conversation and DM and see if we vibe with one another, and if that is the case, let's take this relationship further. That's not a red flag, that's just someone trying to get a funny conversation starter and go off from a positive vibe at the start. Read the room, essentially, is my best advice for people here. And it's an advice that you can use in a lot of other cases. Read the room, people. I'd personally recommend that people try to be mindful of the following instead. Or interact with a person if you're really interested in a person and or their content. I mean, it's optimal, yet at the same time, once you join like some collab groups and stuff, you're gonna interact with some people you aren't necessarily like the content or like as people, you know, they're just we're part of the same collab group or we have friends in commons. You know, it's still nice to like interact with them and maintain a positive relationship, just, you know, to maintain that group cohesion, right? So I get what it's trying to get at. Yes, it's generally good advice to interact mostly with people you are interested in, but if you're doing VTubing professionally, when you work any job, you're gonna be forced to interact with people you aren't generally friend with, you don't generally vibe with, you don't generally like as people. Yet it's still important to interact with them and maintain, you know, a friendly demeanor or neutral. I mean, especially in content creation, it's better to maintain a friendly demeanor because just create better group interactions, right? But if you're taking VTubing seriously at all, at a job or anything, or you want to like have friends, be part of a group, be part of something bigger, you're gonna interact with people you aren't necessarily interested in. and you should interact with them still, because again, it's just the greater good and it's just gonna be more comfortable for you and other people. Only get close to a person if it's a mutual desire to do so. I agree. Feels like a fairly self-evident thing. Make sure the type of relationship to be formed is made known to each other. Yes. I can understand that it's hard to say, I'm not looking for friendship, I'm just looking for collabs. Some people can get very butthurt at it. You don't have to necessarily express it that way. You can say, I'm not necessarily looking for a friend, I'm just necessarily for like people to have a good relationship with, Yeah. I'm trying to find positive interactions with some people. There are ways to voice the I don't want to be friend, I just want us to make content or be in a positive, view each other positively. There are ways you can express that, and it's important that you do if that's what you're after. Do not force an attempt to straight away ask for hangout collabs. I mean, you shouldn't force it, but if that's what you want, you should ask it. The issue is that it's an issue with everything socially, right? People who are malicious will be very prone to ask straight up those things, but people who are more insecure and afraid, when they genuinely want that, they're afraid to ask for it. It should be the opposite. So no, don't be afraid to ask people to hang out and stuff. Don't be afraid to engage with people like that, and tell them that that's what you want to do. And if they say no, well, just back off, or say too bad, or say maybe in the future if you're feeling more comfortable, or there are ways you can ask openly and take the answer in a positive manner. Don't take it too personally. And if they reply very poorly to it, then you're probably not. It's probably not a huge loss then, if they're acting like ass because you just politely ask them to hang out. Do not over compliment or love bomb, especially if you just met them. Why is this under PR? Yeah, I mean, yeah, again, it seems like basic advice. Whatever. Be very sensitive as to talk about certain matters. Medium priority. The best approach to maintain good PR is not making statement where you can cause harm to certain groups of people. I may be discriminated against due to nationalities. Sorry, I'm cringing at reading this. Look, it depends on the audience you're cultivating, right? Some people really like edgy jokes that make fun of people's nationalities, ethnicities, genders, sexualities, interests, belief, and perspective. If I say a joke about how French people, I fucking hate French people. I would never date a French woman again. It's funny. It's objectively funny. Who doesn't love hating on the French? And I'm perfectly fine with people saying that, because I'm French as well. Things that I get offended by are tired jokes of life, surrender monkey, white flags or whatnot. But jokes about French being smelly cheese eater, or I don't know, frogs, or making fun of our accent, that's perfectly fine, right? Who cares? It's supposed to be funny. You're not supposed to take this seriously. This feels too much like family-friendly talk, PC talk. I don't like that. I've never liked that. I understand that this is more of the way I look at things and my personal belief, but what makes content creation so powerful and so resonant to so many people is that it's not adulterated. It's not washed. It has some bite to it, It's not curated to be the least offensive type of content possible, or the most agreeable to the maximum amount of people. This isn't a kid show. This is a person with their own path in life, their own set of belief, talking on the microphone and sharing an experience with other people. That's what makes content creation attractive, right? So if you censor yourself, then you're replaceable. Why should people watch you if you're so afraid? If you're walking on so many eggshells, you're never gonna make anything interesting, or you're never gonna be honest with yourself or to your audience. You're gonna present a fake version of yourself to your audience, and you can only maintain that fake self for so long, right? Before it gets to you in a negative manner. And people love banter. The average person loves banters. So don't be too afraid of sometimes, making jokes, making statements. Within reason, obviously. You shouldn't go full blown into racism, bigotry, and whatnot. Although I will give some leeway that nowadays what passes as racism and bigotry has gone way off scope. Still, I think we can all agree upon that there are certain things that are just not better to say in certain contexts or in certain ways. I think that's reasonable enough of me to say that yes, there are limits to these kinds of things. Reasonable limits, so. Yet at the same time, don't self-censor yourself too hard. Obviously, as mentioned later in that exact paragraph, Twitch community guidelines and stuff, of course you should try to stay within them, but don't be afraid to be yourself too much, right? Statement that may be threatening, demeaning, shaming, or insulting to vulnerable people or people could cause them to be mentally traumatized and contracted to the same levels. Okay, look. If a random Twitter post traumatizes you because it contains mean words, I feel like the issue is with you. If it's targeted at you, that's something different, right? If it's targeted at you, then yeah, I can get what that would be traumatizing. I can get why you'd react extremely poorly to it. That's normal, that's human, right? But if a random Twitter post traumatizes you, I think there are other issues you need to deal with as a person, as yourself, right? You need to see a therapist at this point, I think. So, I agree, don't threaten people. Being demeaning, some jokes are demeaning and they're funny because of it. Shaming or insulting, some jokes are funny because of it. Again, it's a case of read the room, don't be too dumb, and make sure you're doing things with a purpose. Don't just say some kind of wild jokes for the sake of saying wild jokes. Make sure that you're saying it with the intent of it being funny and trying your best to make it funny. Because if you're just insulting people, then it's just that, you're just insulting people, you're not trying to be funny. Okay, it's hard to give examples without fear of being quoted out of context. But it's the difference between saying a racial slur as some Indians and saying, well, the Indian streets are known for being very clean, especially lately. There's a difference between playing about a stereotype of playing with things that we know to be factually true and just straight up insulting people, right? Maybe this is not the best way to phrase it, but I hope you guys are smart enough to understand what I mean, right? There's a difference between these things, and you can play around with it as long as you stay reasonable. But I agree, medium priority? Sure. And may even be commendable for those that want to express themselves and openly take public stances for the purpose of spreading awareness or educating your audience. See, the issue is that spreading awareness and educating your audience, too often than not, people do that in a way that is very... I am morally superior than you. That's often way how it comes across. And that's the worst way you can do it, because people are gonna have an extreme ill-adverse reaction to it. That's why you have all those... That's why virtue signaling is a thing, right? And that's why it's often called out. If I look at, like, someone I very much miss, Mia Melwillery. She made an entire, like, I think it was a Donovan stream, and, like, concerts and whatnot. She made, like, an entire thing to, like, talk about endometriosis. But the way she went at it was, like, you know, really fun. Like, she made a bunch of jokes, she, like, presented, like, diagrams, she explained how women get their periods, how that works, how white people who have suffered from endometriosis, why it's more painful for them. She was raising money for, like, you know, a non-profit organization for women that suffer from endometriosis. You know, that's a good way to, like, spread awareness and educating your audience. Or that stream I'm making right now feels like it's very educational in a way, right? I'm taking my time to try my best to explain to you concepts, ideas, and things, and talk about this document right here, so you can go out of it with a renewed perspective, more ideas, more food for thoughts, right? That's the way you do education. You don't do education by telling people on Twitter that doing this is bad. Because, you know, the issue is that more often than not, it's gonna be more complicated than that. And more often than not, it sounds like lecturing. People hate being lectured, and they're gonna have an extremely adverse reaction to it, right? Right. So be considerate of, like, how you go about spreading awareness and educating your audience. There are ways that are more proper to do it. Now that's the part that I got a bit upset about. Consulting a third-party unbiased opinion, low priority. That should be high priority. I do agree that friends don't always give you the best advice, but that's more an issue of, like, VTubing as, like, a social environment where you have a bunch of people who embrace the "yes, queen" mindset a bit too much. But I'm sure there are people around you who don't necessarily believe in that "yes, queen" mindset, who will give you a more objective opinion. And, you know, there are people who are professionals, you know, whether they be managers, whether they be editors, whether they be people like me, consultants. Like, there are other people you can ask for a more unbiased opinion, right? And that should be high on your priority. Generally, the rule is that if you're not sure about posting something, ask someone, generally. If you're not 100% confident posting something, it's probably because there's something off with it, and deep down you know it. That's the best rule of advice. If you're not sure about something, ask someone. And asking a third party for an unbiased opinion is high priority. Because getting more perspective, getting different opinions, getting different mindset, getting different view sets, is just gonna help you express yourself better and make sure that your message that you're trying to transmit is better received and is more accurate, right? Because at the end of the day, what you want is, like, you want people to understand something. So getting other people to help you formulate that is strictly better, and so high priority for me, most certainly. What else he said in that part? Express opinions and feeling with confidence and passion. Yeah. I mean, not all the time, I'm sure. I mean, more often than not. Yeah, alright. I'm being pedantic right now, I apologize. What may be only coming from our experience and understanding of facts. What you think is right to express may be accepted by the general public at its core or in the manner that you have said, and might only find out about it when we reach a certain point of no return. Which is why when you're about to express certain opinion that may differ on being controversial, unethical, or illegal, it is good practice to first speak to someone that is unbiased to the matter to which you wish to tell the public, even in public or even in private. Then why is it not high priority? Okay, fine, sure. They may provide you with information or perspective that you have never considered. For example, the bias that might be binding you to the actual truth, the sensitivity of the matter, the importance of risk expressing the opinion. See. Okay, we're not gonna go about a deep philosophical dive about the idea of like objective truth. Again, that's a deep philosophical topic for another time. But the fact that I'm bringing that up, I think that should signal to you that it's not that easy, right? It's more so that two things can be true at the same time. Someone can rightfully be offended by something you've said, yet at the same time, you can also have the right to say the things that have offended them. If that makes sense. That's generally like a belief that I ascribe to and I promote a lot. Two things can be true at once, that doesn't make one or the other less valuable. You just have to acknowledge the two. And whether you decide to develop your thoughts on one or the other depends on like what you think is more important, or what you believe in, or what you think is more relevant to the situation. Another great example. Someone saying there is no single truth and there is an objective truth. I think both are true. Sure, you can say that something are objectively true. Making someone else game over, I think we objectively all agree that this is not a good thing, right? Yeah, at the same time, there are certain circumstances that may push you to take that decision because, I don't know, they're committing some unforgiving and unforgivable war crime. So, I'm saying it as a jest, but, you get what I mean, right? With that example. Two things can be true at once. That doesn't make one or the other less true. And that's the funny, I really think that's like the funny philosophical conundrum about objective truth. I generally think that's like, well, everyone's right in this case. Remain calm and collected. I'm gonna largely floor cover that section because it's self-evident. It should be high priority, guys. The moment you start to panic is the moment you're gonna make rash decision. The moment you do that is the moment you expose yourself and you make yourself vulnerable to anyone who wants to exploit it. And I'm pretty sure I touched on that in my original tweets. You should remain calm and collected. That's a priority, high priority. You should take your time, think about it, think about what you're being... Let's take the example, the case of you're in a drama, right? Someone is accusing you of something, or you're in some of drama for whatever reason or not. You should stay calm, identify what people are accusing you of, what people are taking issues with you, and because, there can be a lot of noise, so you need to take your time to identify what exactly is the problem, what is the bottom line that people have, that they take issue with you. And you should formulate a plan on how you plan... Wow, I'm saying the same thing twice. Great, good job, Zan. You should formulate a plan on like how you're going to answer this, how you're going to reply to this, how you're going to manage this, what narrative are you going for, what are you going to explain yourself in a more truthful, vulnerable manner? Are you going to be more on a factual and professional answer? Are you going for more something that you believe is like my freedom of expression way, something more as I don't want to self-censor? There are different ways to handle this, right? But remaining calm should be high priority. There's so many call-out we've seen. It sounds right to do, but it also sounds stupid. Banana juju hair debate. I mean, yeah, it's... I was seriously debating the choice of hairdress on a fucking VTuber model. It is so stupid. It is objectively stupid, I think. Why are we even talking about this? Okay, let's keep going. Do not dismiss or ignore all accusation or controversial matter related to you. Low priority. I don't think that's a thing you can put priority into, because it's gonna be an extremely case-to-case basis. Sometimes people are accusing you of the stupidest shit, and you should dismiss them. You should ignore them. You shouldn't give them the time of days. Don't waste your time and energy on stupid people and stupid stuff. It's not worth it. You'll gain nothing. I guess maybe you can get if you want to engage with it at most, if you know it's really stupid and you can get like some easy engagement by dunking on them, just do that and move on. Make a stupid post, dunk on them, get your interaction, get your likes, get your quote retweet and your repost, your comments and whatnot. Push your name further out there into the space and just move on. But don't give it too many thoughts. Don't give it the time of day. Don't waste your times on people like this. It's not worth it. Yeah, the other time, there are things which are much more serious that you need to consider and take into account. And the issue with that is that it's kind of hard to identify when you've genuinely made a mistake than when it's just noise, essentially. And that's when you ask other people for opinions. Do you think I made a genuine mistake, or do you think this is just noise and I can just ignore it? This is why, again, that consult a third party, high priority, because it's gonna allow you to identify if what's being thrown at your face currently is important enough that you need to acknowledge and address it, or just noise that you should dismiss and ignore it, or maybe get an easy dunk on. Some people are self-aware enough to make that decision and identify when, yeah, I really fucked up on that one. But it takes a lot of skills and a lot of self-reflection and a lot of... How could I say this? Self-awareness. It's just, it's an extremely difficult and hard to acquire skill. It's a skill that you acquire, right? Not something that you inherently have. And so because of that, it's just better to ask for a third party if you don't have that, and most people don't. Okay. Again, we're going to gloss over that part because it's, again, a case-on-case basis. Take accountability and give genuine apologies. High priority. Similarly, it's a case-to-case basis. Sometimes it's stupid noise. You shouldn't apologize. Apologizing will only make you weaker. And sometimes, dare I say, apologizing is the worst choice you can make. Because it may signal to your audience that they can push you around. And once you send that message out, you lose so much agency as a person. Because then you become enslaved to your audience. Your audience dictate how you react, think, and what you do. And once that happens, you're done. It's gonna be so hard climbing back from that hole, right? I've said this before, exaggerating a bit, but you lose your sense of individuality. You're not a person anymore. You're just your chat's and your audience plaything. Exaggerated, yes, but there's a conundrum of truth to it. You lose aura, lol. Yeah, you certainly do lose a lot of aura when you do that. Thanks for that, Jackie Forrest. That's a great retort. You lose aura. Yet, at the same time, there are moments where it's not that deep and just making a simple apology will get you out of trouble, for the most part. And there are other times when making an apology is never gonna be enough for some people. It's just such a case-per-case basis that you can't really say it's high priority or that it's something you should do. Again, the most important part is talking to other people and try to identify whether it's what you should do or not. And if you're not sure, hire a professional. Simplest answer. If you genuinely think that this is at risk of damaging your career, your brand, your image, and making you lose money, lose revenue, hire a professional. It's gonna be money well spent, I promise you. And I'm probably gonna circle around back to that at the end, but that's the big problem with public relation and while people often dismiss it, is because it doesn't generate value right? It doesn't generate revenue. The only thing PR does is like minimize loss or increase potential gains, and it's something that you can hardly measure, right? And so that's why many people are often reluctant to hire help for PR and whatnot, because it seems like a frivolous expense, or it seems like something you can do by yourself, which I can tell you right now, both are untrue. You can generally get something with paying for public relation. Yet it's very hard to measure how much you gain or how much you avoid losing by getting that, and that's a problem. You still have to accept that you're spending that money for no idea how much investment on return you're going to be getting. It blows, it feels like frivolous expense, it feels like a wasted money, but I can promise you there are some cases where it's well spent money. Prince Aquila Varangiopoulos, nice 40k reference there. High value information. Do the people against you believe in forgiveness? See, that's the issue. When you're embroiled into a drama, you're gonna have different group of people, some of which will believe in forgiveness, some of which won't. And what you need to identify at some point is that whoever is gonna calm them down, you need to what I often tell people is like, think of the third party, right? Think of the neutral people. Don't think about the people that are for or against whatever you did. Think about the people that are onlookers. Think about what's the best option for you to make you agreeable to those people. If it's a stupid, most of the third party that are onlookers think that this is a stupid drama. Don't apologize, do your thing, move on. If onlookers think that an apology they will be satisfied with an apology, then just make that. The issue with that, again, acquired skill, take times and preparation and research. It is very hard to identify what onlookers will think is the best option. And you need that third party perspective. That's why again, it's not just high priority, it's the priority, most extreme priority. Ask people around you for their third party's opinion. It will help you so much. I find it interesting that you would emphasize third party onlooker. They would be the least invested, surely. That's what makes them so valuable. They don't have stakes in this, so they can give you the more honest opinion. You say that like them being not invested is detriment. I say that's the most important aspect, especially in VTubing, because people will engage in call-out because of incentives, right? Either it's because they genuinely believe that what you did is wrong, or because they're trying to drama farm you. And so people who will support you have a similar incentive. They think that like supporting you will gain them something, whether that be your friendship, your support, that once they get into drama themselves you will support them, whether that's because they genuinely believe that you did nothing wrong. So again, they are biased as well. To get the better, more unbiased opinion and try to go for the best answer you can get, going for a third party that is not invested is the best option, because they have the least incentive to fuck you over or to try and play you or manipulate you, right? The issue is sort of that like you need a third party that would need to feel that they can give you a bit of time and attention. That's why generally you're gonna look for more people that are part of the scene as like professionals, because they're still generally they're still gonna be interested in like giving you advice that will help you succeed, right? Or the health of the ecosystem, or like not seeing more stupid drama. So people that are quote-unquote the least invested in the drama going on but still invested in you or the scene are gonna be the best third parties to give you an opinion. Which generally that's like other VTubers, consultants, CEOs, managers and whatnot, right? For a perspective check, I see what you mean without any difficulty, but if you are actually in a controversy, working to appease and make your case to people who are closest to uninvolved seems strange to me. Yeah, I get that it can feel strange. Maybe it's just a thing that, like... Maybe it's because it's a message that I'm sending right now that is more geared for other content creators, right? Maybe that's why you're not really getting it, or not sure. I don't know if you make content yourself, Aquila, but when I think from the perspective as like a content creator, as someone part of the industry, I feel like it is the most relevant advice I can give. Sure, if you're just like a random fan into getting into a drama, then getting a third party may seem strange because why would they care, right? But like from other people in the industry, they're gonna be more interested in getting less drama, quote unquote, right? I identify as an artist. You poor fool. Artists are the worst for drama. Don't get your drama advice from artists. You poor fool. Anyway. Because, see, that part. It can work, right? Acknowledge the harm your action have caused. Do not deflect or blame or minimize your fault. Genuine attempt to share or attempt action to undo the harm. I'm sorry if you were hurt by my action. I'm sorry, but I was drunk or high when I said that to you. I'm sorry, but others have said worse things to me and I was fine. I'm sorry, but I have autism spectrum disorder. I can't control. Sorry, I was on my meds. No, sorry, I was off my meds. I'm so sorry, oh god, I'm so sorry, please forgive me, I'll never do that again, I promise. Okay, I understand I was wrong, I'm sorry for my action, I've caused you harm. Look, sometimes it's thing you should say and it's gonna work, but again, that's just a case-per-case basis, that just wholly embracing this as like advice for a mindset feels just wrong. Like it feels like you just get into more trouble if your first reaction shouldn't be, I should take accountability and give genuine apologies. If this is your first reaction, man, the shark are gonna sniff blood and they're gonna eat you alive. You're not gonna make it out long in this industry if that's the first thing you jump into. The first thing you should jump into is identify what's happening, call down, ask for third party. Taking accountability and genuine apologies should be like the last option once you've identified that that's the thing you should do, right? There's like an entire thought process before doing this. There needs to be an entire thought process before you decide that taking accountability and giving genuine apologies is the best choice, right? Respect people's privacy and be cautious when having private conversations. Again, you know, so many of these things, they aren't really PR. They're just like social stigmas. There's like good manners. There just feels like common sense, right? That's not really PR coded or PR related. And that's the end of the section, I think. You know, most of the branding things is like fairly good, and you know, I'm not surprised because I was told by I don't know if I can no, I think he made that public, so yeah. Kenny Sue, if you know him, said in the comment of someone that the guy was known for like doing like business laws, marketing and stuff like that. So I'm not surprised that like the whole like marketing and branding aspect of it is much more research and thorough and well explained. You know, that's the side of it that I would say is fairly good and that you can take as advice. Obviously, you know, there's some tad bits I'd agree or disagree with, but maybe that's just me being pedantic. Someone who's had experience with like marketing and business legalese is obviously going to give you better advice when it comes to marketing than when it comes to public relations. So I guess that's a good summary, right? Most of these just aren't PR. It's someone who thinks they get it, but they don't really get it, right? It lacks precisions. Most of it is just like good manners and common sense and social stigmas and the way you should behave individually as a person or as a content creator, rather than some form of professional advice or guidelines on how you should do public relations. To be honest with you, there is no set guide on how to do public relations. It's more of a professional mindset, right? You can teach someone technique. Like, I can teach someone to do narrative building. Like, that's a genuine public relation technique I can teach someone. But it's more so that it's a technique that's... So many of these techniques are like intellectuals, you know? Like, me teaching someone narrative building... okay, let's actually do that as a way to explain it. How would I teach someone narrative building? You know, one of the valuable PR skill. I'd say one, probably. Look at politicians' speech. Genuinely, great way to do it. See, you have these, I don't know how you call that in English, actually. I guess I can roughly translate it. It's like speech figures. You know, like when you over-exaggerate something, when you do an analogy, when you put things in contrast, when you do the old famous ABBA form of like rhetoric. You know, there's those stylistic figures of writing that like politicians use all the time, because, you know, every political speech is going to be about transmitting a large set of messages, and understanding how they transmit those messages is going to help you like understand how you can do that yourself, how you can create that narrative framing. It's another thing that's important as well. It's narrative framing. You should keep a tone, right? ZAN-VT says, knowing the difference between PR and general advice is good. Yeah, like, as general advice, what Jack Light said, a lot of it rings true. As common sense, a lot of it rings true. And it's, you know, fairly agreeable. But as PR, this is terrible. This is just inaccurate, this is misinformed, this is just not PR at all. And the issue with, like, making a guideline for PR is that you can't really do that per se, because the most important things, me personally, that I think with PR is that every situation is going to be different. You can give like general advice or guidelines on that, how you should address things, but those are just that, guidelines, and they're guidelines on like before actually engaging in PR. If you've listened to everything since the start of the stream, or of this VOD, hi VOD watchers, you've probably noticed that everything I said, well, it sort of happens before you actually go ahead and engage with like what is like practical PR, as in like writing that message, writing that post, deciding how you're going to engage with the topic, making decisions. Everything that I've said so far comes from the before, and that's really the only guidelines you can give. It's how you're supposed to do the before, how you're supposed to engage with it. Staying calm, making a plan, trying to get third opinion, trying to think of the narrative framework, what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. Every situation is so different that you can only teach PR as hypothetical. And that's why generally people don't learn it or never get it and get someone else to do it, because those aren't generally things you can easily learn. Those are things that you learn with practice. Those are practical skills. Teaching PR is pure hypothetical. Doing PR is pure practice. And that's why it's so difficult to get a hold of. At least that's how I see it. With like my above 3 years of experience. And I want to say, I do think, well, I just have 3 years, it is valuable experience. I've said it before, I've made that publicly known before, so I'll say it again. I've had the incredible chance to do some incredible internship and job with like the banking industry and the medical sales industry, where PR is extremely touchy and goes into a lot of gray and ethical areas. Because, you know, I don't think I need to explain to you why everything that's related to like, you know, medical stuff and bank stuff is, you know, morally extremely sensitive and awfully touchy and morally gray and complicated, right? I don't think I need to make a whole explanation. We've all been frustrated at like the banking or medical system at some point or another. We all get that, right? And that really taught me a lot about like what I wanna do, as like, you know, what I want to be a good boy that does his best to be ethical, and it still gave me a lot of like practical skills as to like how you create all those narratives, how you essentially, you know, manipulate feels like a strong word, but how you guide people or push people to think a certain way or agree with certain things or not. Manipulation feels like too much of a strong word because it's not necessarily malicious all the time, and that's important to highlight that difference. And that's why people often do ask professionals, and that's why for every like big companies like Nijisanji or Hololive or Idol, I mean Idol doesn't exist anymore, what is it again? It's let's call it Brave Group, screw it, I call it Brave Group, Brave Group and whatnot, you know, all of them have people, right now I can pull up their LinkedIn, who are listed as public relations specialists or public relation experts. Once you reach a certain size, you need that skill, and you realize, hopefully, and that's, by the way, one of the big mistakes this shoujo made, but you know, there were so many issues with that like saying that like they had shit PR is like the least of their problems, right? But Vishojo had this big issue where they didn't have someone that could do proper PR. They thought that like Gunrun and other higher staffer could do it, but they actually didn't do it. They offloaded it onto the shoulders of their talents. They made the talent PR mid-shields, essentially. The talent would be the one, you know, standing up, defending the agencies, whatnot, which, by the way, ethically terrible, horrendous. That's not what you want to do. You're basically throwing your talent into the firing line and saying, "Go on, get shot for me, defend my honor." Defend my honor, peasants. That's so terrible, dude. At some point, once you reach a certain size, you're going to realize that PR is just such a set of specialized skill that takes practice, that takes both the hypothetical knowledge and the practical knowledge. That there are certain things that you cannot do. You know, the average veteran content creator is decently PR savvy. They understand, because they all their job as streamers interacting with an audience, so they understand that aspect of public relation, which is, you know, they're interacting with their audience and stuff. So for the average veteran content creator, they don't necessarily need the basic PR stuff. They already get it by virtue of having experience running a brand, right? But once it gets a bit more heated and a bit more specialized and a bit more into like big drama that could actually damage their revenue, then they'll still need that help to manage their public relation, for the most part. That's why you have Mr. Beast, who's employed in a big agency that runs his PR and stuff. Even he, as like the biggest YouTuber in the world, still has public relation professionals around him to run his social, advise him, guide him, because he understands that there's drama that is just despite his veteran status, cannot deal with. That he doesn't have, like, you know, the skill or knowledge to deal with, and he still has that. Logan Paul would have done great with a bit more PR. So yeah, it's just that, like, PR is just so... PR is an extreme mixture of hypothetical and practical skill. Right? That's why it's like, you can't really give a good guideline. You can give a guideline on what happens before engaging with it, what the mindset you should adopt. But you can't really teach PR per se. You can only coach people into, like, having the right mindset, making the right step. And that's what I do, essentially. Having the right mindset for it, making the right decision before they do anything. You can't really teach PR as in a practical skill. Chroma Shift, thank you, Snacklefox. That's the one I was looking for. I mean, is Chroma Shift relevant? It's been a while since I've heard anything important from them. I don't feel like they're really relevant nowadays, which, you know, sad, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Maybe for the better, because, you know, Brave Group, not a really great brand for the future of VTubing. To go back into how I would teach someone narrative building and framing, reading books. You know, especially, like, funnily enough, poems are a great way to learn narrative building and narrative framing, because, you know, in a poem you have so very little words, yet you're able to say so much, right? That's what's amazing about a poem. You're limited in words, yet you're able to say so much. That is definitely invaluable skills when it comes to narrative building and framing. Sometimes you're gonna have to go in long tirades, but sometimes less is more. Philosophy as well is pretty great, although that's more of a me thing probably, but it's part of, like, getting educated. To engage into anything that's intellectual in nature, which I feel like PR is like, having basic knowledge on, like, some philosophical concept will help you, because it will help you anticipate people's reaction. You know, a read I would always encourage everyone to do is, like, The Social Contract, right? I think it's, if I remember, it's Rousseau, French philosopher. Understanding, like, basic concepts, philosophical concepts about, like, how society works and how humans tend to think and interact and react to things. That's gonna help you, like, interact with your audience better and anticipate things, right? Again, for veteran content creators, it's things they sort of implicitly learn as time goes on. But if you're a bit newer, or you aren't sure, or you're getting into too big of a drama, then having that knowledge is very useful. I'm trying to think if there's, like, another third thing I'd encourage. Maybe there's... Okay, look. It's a bit of a wilder advice. Fanfiction. Okay. Calm down. Stop typing fast. Here we are. Who writes fanfiction? You know, generally very creative people. Generally, you know, exceptions, yada yada, slop, etc. But generally, people who write fanfiction are generally very creative people. And I said generally so many times I could generally go fuck myself. The average person who writes fanfiction is a creative, right? He's creative-minded. Hopefully, he understands that, you know, there's only he understands that there's only so many ways he's going to be able to say, I take my my big stick and I push it into the hole, and we go wee woo together. You know, he understands that. So what he does is that he has an incredible vocabulary for saying that exact same concept of putting the shaft into the hole in so many floral, descriptive, and different ways, you know. And having that diverse vocabulary is gonna help you as well just write better stuff. Now granted, you don't want to be too verbose, especially at certain times. You know, a lot of people have a very ill-adverse reaction to what they perceive as verbosity. Yet at the same time, you know, I feel like at some point, you know, some people call anything too verbose, and so at the same time, it's important that you know you have a good lexicon. Shmolian VT say, this is the first time I have been legitimately complimented for writing fanfiction lol. I mean, yeah. I read a lot of doujin and a lot of fanfiction myself, you know, like, I used to be pretty big into fanfiction. I used to be pretty big into Wattpad. I was influential at one point into the Wattpad writing community. Man, I dated one of those Wattpad girls who end up, like, being picked up by, like, an actual publishing, novel publishing, like, brand. Like, I've been in that universe, you know? I know those people. And, you know, as much as there's slop and dumb bad stuff and things that are, you know, the obvious writer's fetish, at the same time, there are people who are also, you know, very creative and who have such, like, a diverse vocabulary that you can really learn from. And sometimes there are just a certain way that you feel that can only be described by a very specific word, and if you don't have that word, then it can be very troublesome for you, because the message you're trying to send might not be perfectly understood if you don't have that exact specific word at that moment in time. So having that word can sometimes really elevate your writing and make people understand what you're trying to get at, right? I'm trying to think of an example. Let me think. You know, there's a different mindset between I felt excited about it and I felt exalted about it. They sort of mean the same thing. But when you think about it, they don't really mean the same thing, right? Excited, you know, it's more like plain simple. You can be excited about a lot of things. I don't necessarily... You know, that's so vast. When exalted, there's a sort of almost religious fervor to it, right? It's more than excited. It's like something you believe, something you want to shout out. There's just a bit more to it, right? And just changing that one word can really better transmit. It's especially having that extended vocabulary is especially important if you're trying to share emotions with people, which, you know, very often that's a pathway people take when making statements. Exuberant, I think you mean. No, I meant exalted. I'm not sure what you're saying exuberant for. Sorry, Snackle Fox, if you could go back to that and re-explain what you're trying to get at with bringing up the word exuberant. But because me, when I say the difference between excited and exalted, like, I mean that as in, like, that's not exactly the same sentiment, right? And if you're trying to convey emotion, it's best that you have the most exact word. It's really gonna help people understand you better. Sociology, that's a big one. I think that's, like, self-descriptive, understanding, like, why social rules, social stigmas exist, and why they are the way they are, and why people interact with them certain ways. Excuse me. I'm having the hiccups. Understanding. I mean, it helps understand that whole thing I said before about incentives, right? Understanding sociology will also help you understand incentives and why people do the thing that they do. And sociology in general will help you understand that concept of why people do the thing that they do. You know, I believe, now that's a personal belief, I believe there's always a form of logic to everything anyone does. Now that logic may be flawed, that may be they got emotional so they reacted harshly, you know. The fact that I'm saying it's an illogical response is still a form of logic, right? There's still a reason behind it. Me saying there's no reason behind it is still a reason in it of itself. And understanding some basic sociology concept will help you think deeper on that aspect, on like maybe question yourself on why is this person doing this? I mean, I think that's pretty good already, right? I mean, hey, funny lesson for you. In media, the number 3 is like the golden number. It's sort of sacred, right? Because tertiary rhythm just feels so natural to human beings. So I think it's, you know, let's not add anything to it. Tertiary rhythm, that's right. The 3 big advice I would recommend for someone who wants to improve everything that's related to like narrative building and framing: studying politician speech, reading books like poem, philosophy, fanfiction, and sociology, understanding some sociological concepts, right? Exalted is raised up, like holy or noble. I guess that you could say that you're so happy that you feel like you've made so. It's more solemn, if anything, though. Then I feel like we're getting a bit pedantic with it. I'm just gonna move on from it. I'm sorry, Snackle. What else is there to say? Well, I think that's pretty decent, alright. So, is this document worthless? No. I don't believe any piece of documentation like this that still had some effort put into it is worthless. It's more so what parts should be more valued, or what understanding can we gain from it. I cannot speak much of the legalese side of this because, again, not a lawyer. I hope some kind of other lawyer VTuber also analyze this and give their advice, because, you know, more discourse better, more opinions better, at least that's what I think. However, from a PR side, as a PR expert, I can say that this is pretty worthless on that side. Right? Like, if you're reading this document for PR advice, you're not gonna find it here. What you're gonna find are like some fairly decent basic sense social behavior that should be encouraged, ways to handle yourself professionally around other people. That's more so a guide on how to behave, quote unquote, rather than anything professionally related. I mean, no, it's that. It's like how to professionally behave, quote unquote, more so than how to manage your public relation, right? There are a couple of parts on this that I'm still iffy about, that I've voiced aplenty during this entire stream. So, you know, take the good parts that you can. I especially think that like the whole branding things is like much better put together, and like that there's a lot more you can take from it than the PR side, which is just not PR at all. In part, it's because I think you can't really teach PR the way you can and make a general PR document on how to do PR. And actually, let me extend on that idea for a fun fact. You aren't really taught PR. I wasn't taught PR, right? I was taught event running with a side of like public relation, but I was taught was all the hypothetical that one of the main one I was taught that I'm mentioning is narrative building. But again, we are taught the concepts, not the practical aspect of it, right? Not how to do it. We aren't taught how to actually do PR. We are taught about what PR is from an hypothetical and academic point of view, right? Whereas when I was taught how to run an event, that was much more practical. I actually, at my university, we actually ran two, right? That's why you will often see me talk about convention and stuff, because like I've ran a convention, now granted much smaller than something like Offkai or Vexpo, but I've run a convention in like my city, right, before. I've run like a concert in my city before. I know the amount of effort and the laws around it and work you have to put in, right? I know it's a multi-month effort. That's why you will often see me talk about it, because I know how that goes. But again, all of that very practical, very clear, very clean. PR, not so much. I didn't come out of like university as a PR expert. That's a specialization I had to take. I had to send letters, send emails to like people that were PR professionals in like some bigger companies, which I shall not name for the sake of privacy. But you know, pretty big French companies, right? And some of them did answer my questions and offered me interviews. Some of them completely ignored me. Some of them told me to fuck off, essentially. But yeah, and it's generally you study communication in general, and you take your specialization when you run your master or your doctorate, right? Or after you got your license and you try to like specialize yourself in a set of skills, right? You're not really taught per se. Teaching PR gives you the language of PR, not necessarily the skills. Sort of. And again, it's a bit different because PR is such a fluid thing, right? It's so context dependent. Some brands are gonna be so engaged in like internet culture that like it's a thing actually I've criticized Hololive for. Some of the Hololive PR staff are like PR staff from like traditional businesses. So that means they don't really understand how fans react, how fans speak, how fans how fans interact with the brand, how fans speak, how fans meme, how fans engage with the content, how fans engage with the brand. They don't understand the culture, you know? So put someone from like a traditional business standpoint, like I don't know, someone who sells biscuits or something, and put them into VTubing, they're gonna do a shit job. They are PR experts, but they're just gonna do a shit job at it because they just don't get it, right? PR is a language, but that language is fluid, and it needs to be adapted to like the context you find yourself in. Like take someone who does video game PR and is probably gonna be pretty decent at running PR for like a VTuber agency, because it's quote unquote interactive media, it's like content, it's something that's like has much more similarities between the two. There are more similarities between a VTuber PR expert and a video game PR expert than a banking PR expert per se, where for example I originally came from. But me, I got that knowledge from like being a VTuber fan. So you know, I already understand the culture, the way people interact, the memes, and all that. And that's a point I've raised countless times before, is that still at the top brass of like some of these agencies, we still have too many traditional corporate PR manager or experts, and not necessarily VTuber fans who happens to be PR manager, or PR manager who happens to be VTuber fans. Whichever way you want to put it. I know it sounds very complicated, or it sounds like I'm trying to make it complicated, but generally it's just... I'm trying to... How can I say this? It's more so that's like, it's not something natural, quote unquote, right? Public relation is a direct byproduct of like the information age. If you look at like 100 years ago, PR wasn't just a thing. It was mostly marketing, right? It was like, how do I sell my product to the most amount of people? What are the things that I should highlight and stuff? Public relation really became more relevant in like the 60s when the TV came about, and it started with politicians, believe it or not, who it started in like the US with like the political campaigns and stuff. It's a direct creator of like the modern concept of public relations. Like, there are things that you can describe as public relations before that, but modern public relation as we know it was born with the TV and with American politicians in the 1960s, 1950s, maybe you could say. Because when more people had access to the information, that means that, well, that information had to be transmitted better, because basically there was a layer before. There was the information being said by the politician, the educated who then transformed or shared that information with like the people, the lower, upper, middle class, right? There was that educated person in the middle that would share that there was that third party. But with like the arrival of TVs, that third party completely disappeared. The relationship between the transmitter and the receiver became direct. It was the president directly talking to the people. There wasn't a journalist in the middle, there wasn't an intellectual in the middle, there wasn't a philosopher in the middle. That third party, I mean, they still exist, we still have those things, but it's more so for presentation and convenience sake. They aren't needed per se anymore. You can send a direct message from the politician to the people. And so that's why PR became necessary and became born, because those politicians had to be taught not how to just handle journalists who serve as that middle way, but how to directly talk to people, how to project their message and their opinions. So it's not like... it's still fairly new to an extent. And with the internet, the age of the internet, the information age, there's just so many different ways to interact right now from a public relations standpoint. You can have a community Discord, there are trends on social medias, you can make videos and content, you can make TV ads, you can make... I mean, for a long time, some brands made their own video games. Yes, that's pretty crazy. If you go look at like forgotten video games from like the Atari days, you can find brands who put out video games. Crazy stuff. And there's just so many different cultures, right? With the internet especially. There are some brands who adopt more of a prim and proper traditional business standpoint, and that works for them. There are more brands who engage more of the internet culture, like, I don't know, Wendy's, for example, is a famous example of like a food brand that's like very prone to engaging with like meme culture and social media and trends and whatnot. It's a fine line between genuinely engaging with it and having a proper public relation professional to engage with that. And how do you do, fellow kids? It's a fine line to walk, but some people manage to walk it fairly great. It's just so that I don't believe that you can really teach PR. PR are just a bunch of acquired skills and experience. You can be taught some concepts of it, some hypothetical, some idea of how it can be done, and how each quote-unquote should be done. You can teach guidelines or the mindset to approach it, but doing it properly, practically, it's pure experience, it's pure practice. It's just something that you sort of get it or you don't. It's like it's a vocation, it's a passion, Not everyone's gonna get it. that's fine. I'm not trying to like glaze or self-aggrandize myself. That's just generally what I think. It's just PR is just very obscure. I grew a passion for it, and I love doing it. I love like sending a message. I love creative writing. I love making grand speeches. I love being exuberant, to use the word you used earlier, Snackle Fox. I just love that. That's just something I like doing. So it's my vocation. And I think that's like a pretty good way to end the stream, don't you guys think? The stream's been going on for 2 hours and a half? Yeah, that sounds fairly good, I think. What next? I don't think I can raid someone, can I? I've never done that before. I should look into that. Promises, guys. I'll try to look into how to raid someone. At some point, I gotta learn how to do that. God damn it. I'll ask Armchair for it, actually. No, yeah. More seriously. I'll try my best to stream a bit more, but I feel like I said that every time and I still can't manage to do it. And you know, with my job now, it's so hard, especially because we're in the high season. I'm so tired all the time. Still, I really wanted to talk about this, and I found the time to do it, and I'm pretty satisfied with it. I hope you guys enjoy listening to me. If I can ask for one thing, it's obviously liking, subscribing, and sharing that, especially if you're like friends with like VTubers or people in the industry. Encourage them to give this a watch, like while they're working on something or whatnot. It would be always great, you know. My core audience remains people that are part of the industry, even though sometimes I'm, you know, not afraid to confront them or like, let's say, be a bit too honest and brutish about it. At the end of the day, what I want is to help the most amount of people succeed in the industry, and so getting to know more people is, well, only gonna succeed at that. So don't be afraid to like talk about me to like other people that you know who are part of the industry and may not know me per se. And yeah, pretty good. Now, actually, can we get working? Can we get the N-word from our sponsors?
Fuck you, VTubers!
Oh yes!
If you're mentally ill enough to become a VTuber, you're a big head of manner to need ZAN-VT! Public relations, business ethics, internal communication. If you think you're going to find cheaper and better, you can kiss my ass! It is my belief that VTubers are so emotional, they need someone to hold their leash. Guaranteed! And if you're a tourist, go back to flesh tubing. You heard me right! Go back to flesh tubing. Bring your brand, bring your agency, bring your Oshi. I'll fuck her. That's right, I'll fuck your Oshi. Because at ZAN-VT, we work even on Sundays. Take a call with ZAN-VT, home of Piss Tuber. That's right, Piss Tuber. Don't wait, don't delay, don't fuck with me, or I'll rip your ovaries off. Only at ZAN-VT, the only consultant that tells you to fuck off. Hurry up, asshole. This event ends the moment after you send an invoice. And it better not refund or you're a dead motherfucker. Go to horny jail. ZAN-VT Consulting. Between rawest and most honest home of the meanest son of a bitch this side of VTubing. Guaranteed. Fuck you.
My bad. Yeah. Okay, we're done. Sorry. I mean, come on. I got this made. I'm gonna get my money's worth. I'm gonna shill myself every time. I just love it so much. I did such a great job writing that script. Anyway, Jackie Forrest asked, will you edit this down into something more concise, or do you need help with that? It could be useful. If you want to clip it or edit it or make something, do it. Post it on your channel, monetize it. I'm perfectly fine with that. I even repost it on Twitter if you want. No problem, dude. Because like honestly, me, I don't really have the time. I don't really have the time, unfortunately, between my IRL job, between my VTuber consulting, and between my my hobbies, You know, in case you don't know, I do play Magic the Gathering, and next weekend there's a Lord of the Rings pre-release, which I am most certainly going to, and which is very annoying because it happens at a very bad time for me IRL work-wise. So you know, between like IRL work, VTuber work, and hobbies, I just really don't have a lot of free time, unfortunately. And currently, I am in the process of buying a new car and doing a bunch of annoying paperwork. I just don't have the time. No, it's already quite a miracle that I managed to snag 3 hours to do this stream, honestly. Like, I was half tempted to cancel it, like, 2 days ago. Not because I hate you guys, I promise. I'm very happy you guys came to see me. Thank you. Thank you very much. But really, I'm so tight on time. So if you want to, like, do something with it, Jackie Forrest, no problem. Knock yourself out. Make a clip, make a shortened version, monetize it, make money from me, I'm perfectly fine with it. Because, like, at the end of the day, what I want, right, is to, like, spread my message, spread my memes, just like Armchair said, like, not too long ago. Have more people reach out to me and talk to me, so if that's certainly one way to do it, so go ahead. I saw a rewrite of the original to be about EA Nasir's terrible grade copper once. I want to record that one given half an excuse. Well, yeah, I saw plenty of parodies of like the big rig ads as well. I saw one that was like EVE Online with like ships and stuff. Hilarious, absolutely hilarious. I wish I could see more, honestly. I think more VTubers should do that one. I mean, it's such a good template to make like whatever you want, like, right? I mean, you know, just insults isn't funny, but sometimes, just yelling out insult is very funny. Sometimes, you know, at limited doses, it feels very funny. So yeah, time to end the stream. Again, thank you everyone. Like, share, and subscribe, and hopefully we see each other again very soon. Bye bye.